With 5% of the world's population, America locks up an incredible 25% of the world's prisoners. More than 3,000 are behind bars for life with no chance of parole for non-violent crimes. Some of these are drug kingpins, but others are petty criminals snared by harsh sentencing laws.
Picture. That's me and Lance in prison.
Lance Saltzman, for example, was 22 when he was sentenced to life without parole for stealing the gun his stepfather used to threaten his mother.
His stepdad and I got into an argument, and one evening Tony turned around and went into his room and took the gun and opened up the door and put it out the door and shot it at me. And I had jumped into my kitchen. I called the police. Green Acres police came to the house. They took the gun. 2 days later, they had given it back. And Tony had pulled it back out on me again, and Lance figured, well, Tony's going to wind up killing Mom, and I need to get rid of it. And so he took the gun and basically got rid of it, and it was used in a burglary. The next thing I knew, there he was, behind bars with burglary dwelling of a firearm, of a conveyance, of his own home, and now he's got life imprisonment.
Life without parole was almost non-existent before the 1970s. It was almost never imposed for any crime.
Jennifer Turner is the lead author of a new report on life without parole for nonviolent crimes.
As part of the war on drugs and tough on crime policies that were passed over the course of the last 40 years that ratcheted up sentences in the United States, including the passage of mandatory minimum sentencing laws for drug crimes and habitual offender laws like three strikes laws, life without parole for nonviolent crimes started to skyrocket. The types of cases that I've documented include people who committed crimes like siphoning gas from an 18-wheeler truck, serving as a middleman in the sale of $10 of marijuana, shoplifting 3 belts from a department store, shoplifting 2 jerseys from a department store.
Mandatory sentencing and 3 strikes laws are the main reason that more Americans are getting life without parole for nonviolent crimes. Such laws stop judges from judging and bar parole boards from exercising common sense. Mr. Saltzman was convicted of marijuana possession, trespassing and petty theft in his teens. He was also jailed for a burglary he committed when he was 16. When Mr. Saltzman stole his stepfather's gun, it was less than 3 years since he had been released from prison. Under a Florida mandatory sentencing law for ex-convicts, the judge had to lock him up forever.
My son's sentence is wrong. I feel that there was no justice for my son. You know, his crime just does not do the time. When you see so much going on every single day, people getting killed, every single day a child being raped, and they get 5 to 10 years, and yet my son Lance has got life for going into a bedroom to save me. I mean, my son's not no angel, but Lance does not deserve what he got. I feel that he's going to be sitting the rest of his life in prison because nobody cares.
What has been so shocking to me is how so many of these prisoners have simply been abandoned. They've literally been locked up and thrown away the key. Most of these cases, prisoners don't have attorneys. They can't afford lawyers. They have no right to a court-appointed lawyer in their post-conviction appeals. I reviewed cases where prisoners wrote their appeals in pencil, where I read the decisions of judges saying, I can't understand what this appeal is trying to tell me. The prisoner is incomprehensible. I talked with prisoners who are illiterate or were illiterate when they entered the prison system, who didn't understand the trial against them. But it feels as if the system has been stacked against them. Often, especially in the case of 3 strikes laws and even the federal system, jurors don't know that there's a mandatory life without parole sentence at the end of the trial. Some jurors have been approached after these cases to ask, well, what sentence do you think that guy got? And they'll name a sentence of, I've seen cases where they name 5 years, 10 years, and are shocked that the person received life without parole. One juror said, I wish you hadn't told me what he got. because it will keep them up at night.
Ultra-long sentences are expensive. It costs more to jail someone than to send him to a good university. And the human cost is impossible to estimate, both to the prisoners themselves and to their families.
I'm lost. I clip papers all day. I don't want to do anything. I'm lost. And I've got 3 children, and I tell them, your brother's number 1, and they probably hate me for it, but I have to focus on Lance. I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't think. My son is gone for life with no chance of parole. He can't even go up in front of a parole officer to even have even have them think about it, because he has no parole.
In the abstract, voters typically support laws that sound tough on crime. But how many of them really know how mandatory minimum sentencing works in practice? Judges have long opposed mandatory sentencing laws, and in August, Eric Holder, America's Attorney General, promised reform. He said that federal prosecutors would no longer charge low-level, non-violent drug offenders with crimes that could trigger long mandatory sentences. It's a step in the right direction, but as long as mandatory minimum laws remain on the books, they can always be used again. And there are few signs of hope for the non-violent criminals already condemned to grow old and die in prison. Neither Barack Obama nor many state governors use their powers of clemency often.
He's talked about committing suicide, Lance has, because he's got life in prison. He's talked about all that. And I try to talk him out of it. And it's hard when you're not going to be able to come out and hug your loved ones, or see your dog, or go to the beach again, or eat ribs, or have a McDonald's hamburger, or what have you. Just life in general. It's hard.